There are many young millionaires online who can be seen giving a plethora of business and financial advice, ranging from Iman, Gadzhi, Sebastian, Ghiorghiu, Jordan Welch, Azeez, and many others. But are they truly businessmen or simply entertainers?
We have the tapes. We have the information.
If you're a guy in your 20s and you don't have a Lamborghini, you should actually sit down and have like a serious discussion with yourself as to why you don't have a Lambo. I realize now that it's so incredibly easy and there's so much money out there, and 200 grand, especially now with AI tools that you can leverage, 200 grand is...
Now that it's so incredibly easy and there's so much money out there, and 200 grand, especially now with AI tools that you can leverage, 200 grand is chump change.
And people will say I'm out of touch with reality, and they can suck it because it's just not true. I've seen a lot now, and I'm like, okay, so 200K is literally pocket change. If you're a guy in your 20s watching this and you don't have a Lamborghini, you should sit down and you should have a serious discussion with yourself.
Who believes that? Because if you believe that, I need to go and get my psychological assessment kit. If you believe that, I need to go and get my psychological assessment kit, and you need an intelligence test right now.
Content that I have been uploading this year, I don't want to upload it. I don't necessarily want to make the 7 millionaire habits.
Content that I have been uploading this year, I don't want to upload it. I don't necessarily want to make the 7 millionaire habits
videos or like the 3 steps to blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I have a fiduciary duty to grow, right? To grow the vessel, to bring more eyeballs so that way I can attract more customers.
I'm a psychologist, nigga. You don't think I can read you? I'm a psychologist, nigga. You don't think I can read right through your phony ass?
With business number 1, my YouTube channel. In 2021, I began to see momentum on my channel, but it was still a side project. Towards the end of the year, I moved away from making videos only about dropshipping and focused on bigger ideas that I genuinely wanted to create. And this lit a spark in me like none other and made me realize that this is all I wanted to do. So in 2022, I made the conscious decision to focus my efforts entirely on YouTube. Why? Because it's the thing that I love the most. I'm so thankful every day to make a living from this because it's what I always wanted.
I'm so thankful every day to make a living from this because it's what I always wanted. It made me realize that this is all I wanted to do. So in 2022, I made the conscious decision to focus my efforts entirely on YouTube.
Listen, we're probably going to ruffle some feathers with this one, but it's got to be done because I'm seeing a slew of young millionaire YouTubers out there that are slinging all sorts of business, investing, and financial advice. And the truth is, the majority of them are straight up lying to you. And the other ones, well, they may not be lying, but they are wrong in a lot of cases. Now, we're not going to bother with the really blatant offenders because they tend to be pretty easy to weed out with just a little bit of digging. They're typically the guys who are renting out airplanes, their Lambos, and just trying to sell you on their course, which, if anything, is either content they took from someone else or it's them just making up some garbage and putting a pretty little bow on it. Now,
More times than not, I generally feel like it does start off with good intentions, you know, just documenting your lifestyle or documenting like your success, your journey to maybe basically being financially wealthy. But then it's like all of a sudden you have a little bit of success with your business and now you're a financial expert.
We got ya, we got you, bud.
Right? It's like Ice Spice or any of these people who have like a couple hit songs. It's like them making a hit song and then within the year they're telling you how to last in the music industry. It's like you're basically a baby, or you're basically a puppy, right? In terms of like having longevity in this space. So to turn around and all of a sudden be like an expert after having that a good year business-wise is a fine line, you know? The advice they're about to give you, is it built on like concrete or built on like a solid foundation, or is it built on a house of cards because they had one good year during a pandemic or during a recession or whatever it is, whatever circumstances that led to their success at that point, you know?
Guys that we're going to focus on in this video, they're a higher class of criminal. Okay, actually, that's overselling it. The young YouTube millionaires we're going to talk about here actually aren't bad guys. In a lot of cases, they're wicked smart and they've tapped into a wisdom far beyond their years. Not to mention that they've made way more money than I ever did before turning 25. So sure, go ahead and keep watching their content because these guys truly are a great source of inspiration and entertainment. But when it comes to learning from these people, well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Because you see, the most important skill that you got to develop on your path to winning the money game is that of judgment. You have to develop the ability to consume information, to break it apart into its component pieces, and then critically evaluate it. And then to take that information and keep the parts that serve you while ignoring the parts that don't. And this skill,
I think part of it is that just because the advice was correct in one instance doesn't necessarily mean it'll be correct in another instance. So taking each piece of advice in each circumstance separately and not necessarily conjoining them together gives you better judgment, if that makes sense.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
So damn important when it comes to these young YouTube millionaires, because truthfully, they say a lot of great things that I absolutely agree with. But they also say some things, often without even realizing it, that are just flat out wrong. Now, truthfully, it's not really their fault. I don't think that they're trying to mislead you. They're young. And they don't quite see the full picture yet. So please don't take this as the rantings of a disgruntled old man just bitter at the youth for kicking ass and taking names, but here's how young YouTube millionaires lie to you and why you probably shouldn't be taking advice from them. First, numbers don't lie, but I can make them say whatever I want. Over the past 3 years, I've raised $25 million of capital from private investors to invest in commercial real estate. Often, when I sit down with a new or first-time investor, they're eager just to jump straight to the returns, which makes perfect sense. Like, of course, you want to get an idea of how much you could potentially make in a deal, but it's the absolute wrong place to start. And the reason is this: numbers don't lie, but I can make them say whatever I want. So when I show you my return projections and all my fancy spreadsheets, if you don't trust me, you can't trust my numbers. Because inside of all those rows and columns and assumptions, I can hide pretty much whatever I want. So I want you to think about this next time you're watching some young YouTube millionaire, because at some point they're going to use numbers to impress you. And if you don't speak the language of those numbers, then you can very easily be misled. For instance, one of the most popular video titles out there is How I Became a Millionaire by 23 or something like that. Full disclosure, I have a video just like that on my channel about how I went from $80,000 in debt to a millionaire in only 3 years, and you can check that out here. But what exactly does it mean to be a millionaire? It's pretty straightforward.
He's about to get into it, but basically, do you have $1 million in cash? You have $1 million in assets, and you just simply make $1 million. You know, those are the three like different contrasted circumstances.
Damn! God damn! God damn!
Basic question, right? Well, not really. Are you an income millionaire, meaning you made $1 million of income in the past 12 months? Or are you a net worth millionaire, which means if we add up the complete value of all your assets minus all your liabilities, they'd be worth north of $1 million? Or are you the rarest of all breeds, the liquid millionaire, meaning you have just $1 million in cash or cash equivalents sitting around? So you see, one word, 3 definitions. And you might be saying, yeah, Anthony, who cares? Regardless of which definition you use, it's a lot of money, right? Maybe not. For instance, if you've got $1 million income, but your yearly expenses are $1.5 million, then you actually lost $500,000. And I don't know about you, but that's not someone I would take advice from. Now, the easiest way for a young YouTube millionaire to lie is about their net worth. Again, to calculate net worth, we subtract all your liabilities, like your school loans, your credit card loans, your car loans, and we subtract that from your assets. And this gets tricky because it's easy to calculate how much cash is in your bank account, but it's harder to calculate like how much a piece of real estate is worth, or even trickier, how much a business is worth. Because here's another thing you hear people say all the time: I built a 7-figure business. But again, what exactly does that even mean? Is that 6 figures worth of top line revenue, of profit, of enterprise value, which is just a fancy way of saying if like I were to sell it right now, what could I get for it? And this matters because there's no YouTube police going around verifying how people are calculating their numbers. There's nothing stopping young Ricky from starting an app.
This is why, you know, I'm sure a lot of y'all noticed we not have people exposing other people. But now there's another niche of YouTube going on, is where you expose the exposers.
God, I just wanted God to forgive me for what I was gonna say. I ain't gonna say it though.
So I just feel like we got to a point now where hopefully, just at the very least, people are more cautious in what they say and the projections that they're having about their lifestyle, their business, their whatever it is they're doing, right? Because there are people watching who are trying to come up by exposing you. So
2 words: entrepreneurship.
At the very least, you know, it's gone kind of crazy, you know, exposing the exposers. Like Spencer Cornelia had people make videos about him, basically showing that he's friends with a lot of these people who are, you could say, grifters or fake gurus or misleading their audience.
I'm gonna start promoting them on my channel. Nice. So I'm like a huge fan of this business. So
is it Rubet?
No, I'm kidding. I was like, what?
Is this kidding?
No, although if they want to pay me Drake money,
yeah,
I'm willing to do a lot of things for 100 million.
I'm willing to do a lot of things for 100 million.
Meet me, Kevin, Graham Seth, and Andre Jeek. Some ordinary gamers, the quartering, Spencer Cornelia, of course.
I just closed on this house last week, but buying property seems to be getting more unaffordable by the week. However, there is another way to be a landowner that you may not know about. With this certificate, I can now be referred to as Lord Spencer Cornelia because of the Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords, or ladies in English.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
And I totally understand why people think it's like scammy that the business practices that established titles employs, which is kind of like a little bit of a bait and switch where you don't actually get title to a 1 square foot plot of land in Scotland. I totally understand. I don't think you're wrong to think it's like scammy to do that.
They got your ass on camera.
Niggas ain't got me on no fucking camera.
This is the clearest video I've ever seen. This is the most HD shit ever.
Closed on this house last week, but buying property seems to be getting more unaffordable by the week. However, there is another way to be a landowner that you may not know about.
And there are people exposing him, and this is a whole bunch of shit going on, right? So at the very least, we get to a point now where you just can't say whatever on YouTube or online, and people will just follow you like sheep.
Agency doing $50,000 of top line revenue and then saying it's worth $1 million at a 20x multiple, despite the fact that there's probably nobody on the planet willing to pay that kind of a multiple. Again, this is not the kind of guy I'd be taking financial or business advice from, but to each their own. All right, so here's a real quick example that I just found to prove the point. This video is titled "Making $10,888 Every 24 Hours: A Day in the Life of Sebastian Ghiorghiu," and this thing has been viewed 1.4 million times, which makes sense because this is a bold claim. For those that haven't done the math, $10,888 every 24 hours would be about $4 million a year in income. And for the record, that's an insane number. But you've only got to watch the first 5 or so minutes before Sebastian reveals the dubious accounting principle he's employing, which interestingly enough is the same exact accounting principle that bankrupted Enron back in the early 2000s. Now, for the youngsters out there who've never heard of the Enron scandal, this was one of the biggest companies in the world with hundreds of billions of dollars of assets. And they filed bankruptcy almost out of nowhere when it was revealed they'd been cooking the books for decades and they simply didn't have the money they said they did. Okay, so back to Seb. Here's the questionable accounting tactic he's using. It's called mark to market. At one point in the video, he's sharing all his sources of income, including his ad agency, YouTube, stocks, crypto, which probably isn't doing so well anymore. And then finally, real estate. And it's that last one, the real estate, that's the problem. See, he's currently building his dream home for something like $1.1 million, and he got a cash offer from a potential buyer for $2.8 million. So what he's doing is saying, okay, if I were to sell the house right now, here's how much I would stand to make. And then he's adding that number into his total income and dividing it by how many days he's worked on the project. And this is exactly what Enron did. They would show theoretical future profits as actual current profits. So for instance, they'd sign a contract with another company that said that other company is going to pay them $100 million in 10 years from now. Then Enron would say, hey, look, we just made $100 million. And they'd count it towards their quarterly revenue and profit numbers to drive up the stock price. And you see the problem with this, right? A lot can happen in 10 years. And so not only is that money not guaranteed, but it's not even useful because you don't have it. It's just numbers on a piece of paper. So listen, I truly don't think Sebastian is trying to grift anyone. He's just playing the YouTube game to get the clicks. I mean, I ain't gonna hate on that. But I share this as an example so you'll be better armed against one of the most common lies at young YouTube millionaires.
Because at one point, so they're a businessman, officially or unofficially, they're a businessman, and they're an entertainer. So there's two aspects. They basically have two businesses. So one kind of like teeters off the side of the YouTube. And based on my experience, you can come on YouTube. Once you're monetized, you can come on YouTube, talk your shit, and just talk out of your ass, basically, for the most part, when you come on YouTube.
It was all a lie. Guys, it was all a lie. She lied.
Based on videos I've seen from Sebastian, Jordan Welch, Bihaza, and Iman, Gadzhi, all these other people, more times than not, even in terms of the income that they show you, YouTube may not necessarily be the largest income that they show you, although I think it probably is, but it will definitely be the most profitable, meaning that there's lower expenses, lower overhead to make the content that they make, more times than not, compared to a dropshipping business where you have to deal with refunds, delivery fee, chargebacks, the product fee itself, all this shit. For the most part, a YouTube video, all you really need is an editor, a thumbnail maker, and the profits or the potential income is endless. There's no necessarily fixed profit. It just depends on how many people watch the content that you make. So that's the shit. That's the thing with YouTube, bro. There's no the income potential is elastic, and it could literally be a 1 or 2 man show, and that's it. So the YouTube feeds into the business feeds into the YouTube a little bit, and it gives them the authority to continue to spit the financial or business advice they're giving.
In an attempt to win your trust and impress you. Now, here's the second way they lie to you, which is they say things like, I'm just like you. Truth is, they're not. They're outliers. In fact, they're extreme outliers. We're talking about people in their early 20s who've already amassed enough money to put them in the top 1% of 1%. So in essence, they are probably not good role models to emulate. Let's break it down using something I call the success formula. Success equals skill times hard work times duration divided by luck. Or put another way, how good you are times how hard you work times how long you work divided by just getting lucky and being in the right place and the right opportunity at the right time. Now we can immediately discard hard work and duration as the variables of these young YouTubers' success, because while I'm sure they do in fact work hard, in reality, a lot of people work really hard. That's not unique. Also, duration is completely irrelevant because they just haven't been playing the game for very long, given the fact that they're so young.
That's why I would say, like, if they've been doing their business for, if we're making that income, not just doing the business, let me say they've been making that XYZ. Yesterday they've been making 10K per month, approximately, or 100K per year. For the past 5 years, I could see them having more business credibility in that industry or field. But to make 6 figures 1 year or 2 years, and then all of a sudden turn around and be a business expert, that's kind of weird to me, because like you haven't been in the game long enough. But then it's like they want to document their journey, but at the same time they can't, in a way, turn themselves into a business expert. So it's like, you know, can I really trust you, or are you just talking shit just to like get an additional source of income?
Do something else! Do something else! That's it! That's all we want! Do something else! Holy!
And speaking of like the courses and shit, right? All I'll say with the courses in general is have at least 3 months worth of savings, like the emergency savings fund, in your savings account before buying anybody's courses. So if your monthly expenses is $1,000, have at least $3,000 saved up in your savings account. That'll be money that is exclusive to your own personal needs, like rent, groceries, shit like that. You don't use that money to fund any of your business ventures or fund the course, right? And then any additional money that you have, you save it up to buy the course and do whatever needs to be done to fund that business. And ideally, you actually want to bootstrap the business, meaning that you only use your own money from your regular job or part-time job or other side hustles, and avoid using credit until the business itself has become profitable. Once it's profitable, then you use credit to add basically gasoline to the fire and accelerate the growth. But if it's not profitable, avoid using credit. You're more likely to get into credit card debt. Shumbo. But you need at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up in your savings account before buying any of these online courses. At the very least, right, you'll be good for 3 months or so, or 3 to 6 months, while you are trying to get that other business off the ground. But I find too many times people will they'll take their last savings or their last $1,000 in the hopes of betting on themselves, right?
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Because they think that business will give them income within the next couple months. When more times than not, most businesses are not profitable for at least 2 or 3 years.
Two factors that matter most are skill and luck. Now, we can assume, since they are such extreme outliers, that they did in fact have some pretty damn good luck, which just isn't helpful to you and me, because luck generally isn't replicatable. However, there are some ways to put yourself on the right side of luck. In fact, I did a video on it a while back called The Luck Equation, which I'll drop a link for in the description below. Now, this brings us to the last variable in the success formula, skill. And there's one component of skill in particular that's important for us to understand, and that's the role of talent or innate ability. The unsexy truth is these guys who manage to achieve outsized success so young in life probably had some innate ability that gave them a unique advantage. It's all but impossible to quantify what that is, but it is there. So let's just use an example where the innate ability is a bit more obvious, so we can illustrate the problem with taking advice from these extreme outliers. Introducing LeBron James.
James on the drive!
Now, if you're a kid and you're dreaming about one day playing in the NBA, then LeBron James would be a very, very bad person to use as a role model. Why? Because he's a freak of athletic nature and unique circumstances that enabled him to go straight into the NBA out of high school. He's the 1%er of the NBA, and what worked for him is unlikely to work for you. So his advice not terribly useful. The guy that you actually want to take advice from on how to get into the NBA is the grinder. The guy who was just okay in high school and managed to squeak his way into college, who there, through years of hard work and just grinding, he eventually manages to weasel his way into the NBA. That's the guy you want to take advice from, because his path, though still incredibly unlikely, is the one that has the best probability of being replicated. And so yes, we can look to LeBron James and the young YouTube millionaires for inspiration, but they're generally not the ones you should take advice from, because they're lying when they say that they're just like you and me. They're not. And this leads us into the third way that these YouTube
there's straight up lies, and then there's lying by omission. You know, you'll say shit. This thing helped me get to so and so outcome, but you leave out the inner workings of what actually led to that shit. Like you're like, oh, I was able to make 6 figures at, you know, even what's it? I saw this one tweet a while ago about like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, who dropped out of school or who didn't finish school. But you know, people always leave out that their parents were already well off. The parents had like gave them like you could say a safety net, right? As they were working on this revolutionary business or company. So it was not like their parents were just like regular work. Their parents were like well off. Like I think Zuckerberg, his dad was a lawyer, his mom was something in medicine. But either way, both of their parents were able to give their child a safety net. Most of us don't have a parents giving us a safety net, like a large safety net or ability to like invest in the business that we are going. More than likely, you're a child of immigrant parents who already don't really have much to like give you except for, you know, just love and morals and stuff like that. But to give you like tangible money to invest in this and it fail and them still be okay, nah.
They're lying to you. They're not actually investing. They talk a big game, but these YouTubers are generally not investors. And it's funny because these guys have obviously done their homework on personal finance and investing best practices, because the majority of what they say is true, but it's in the transition from theory to practice that they completely screw up. So here's what I mean. You've probably heard it said like 1,000 times already. Hell, I've probably said it 1,000 times myself on this channel, that you should start investing as soon as possible. And the reason is because you want to get compounding interest on your side, which, as Einstein said, is the 8th wonder of the universe. Those who understand it benefit, those who don't pay it. And it's true. Even like a modest amount of money, like $10 to $20 invested every month from the time that you're 18 until you retire, can add up to be like a truly incredible number. But here's where I see these young YouTubers go wrong again and again and again. They confuse investing with speculating. So let's define some terms real quick, just so we're on the same page. Investors spend money with an expectation of profit after deploying reasonable judgment and thorough investigation of the probability of success. Whereas speculators, on the other hand, they spend their money on opportunities with a high probability of failure, where success is primarily due to chance or uncontrollable external forces or events. So the primary difference then is the amount of risk being taken. See, these YouTubers love to talk about how much money they've made investing in things like crypto, luxury watches, exotic cars, and flipping houses. But these are not investments, they're speculations. For example, depending on when you got into crypto, you either made a ton of money or you lost a ton of money. As a general rule, it's not a good investment if the only way that you make money is by getting in and then out at the exact right moment. With 800,000 subscribers, Sebastian Ghiorghiu is probably one of the most popular young YouTube millionaires out there. And in a recent video, he shared how he'd woken up at 4 a.m. with a gut feeling and decided to short his crypto position. Wing bang boom, next thing you know, he's made $40,000 in a single hour and turned a $30,000 investment into $600,000. But that's not investing, that's gambling. Okay, so here's another thing that looks a whole lot like investing, but in actuality, it's not. House flipping. You've probably seen this on HGTV when Chip and Joanna, they go buy a rundown shanty with like a porcupine living in the guest bedroom. They slap some paint on it, they evict Mr. Porky, and then they turn around and sell it for a pretty penny. Again, our boy Sebastian flipped his first house last year and he made a nice little profit of $40,000. Seriously, no, that's awesome. I'm not hating on house flippers. In fact, I flipped 3 houses in college and I think it can be like a really good way to get into the money-making game. But it's not an investment. It's a job coupled with an educated guess. So think of it like a painter who spends 40 hours on a single painting that they hope will sell. But there's no guarantee and it could just end up in the closet collecting dust. Then compare that to being a house painter who knows once he's done painting the house, he's getting paid for his 40 hours of work. One is an investment of time while the other is just a speculation. Now here's the really important takeaway. There's nothing inherently wrong with speculating. In fact, speculations can generate some incredible returns. After all, that painter could end up being the next Picasso. And so if you're looking for incredible outsized returns, and sure, you might hop into some more of these speculative opportunities, but it's critical that you understand when you're investing versus when you're speculating, because most people think they're doing the first when in reality they're doing the second. And then they're screwed when something crazy happens. You know, like $100 million just disappearing in the blink of an eye when...
the FTX shit. Oh man. Even this even goes into like all these like finance sponsorships that you see on finance channels or exposure channels. It's like at the end of the day, I've seen one about Masterworks. I think it's the next up and coming financial scam. That might be it. But basically, if you're gonna invest in this shit, just invest like plain money that you don't really care about into it. And then if it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't go well, it's money you didn't care about anyways, right? You know, it's the same thing as like giving money to friends and family. You never give them money that you would care about. You only ever give them money that you don't care about. So if they ask you $50, you give them $50, you give them $30, heck, you give them $5 or $10 with the assumption that you'll never get the money back. You will be at peace, and that relationship, that friendship, at least will not be strained. You know what I'm saying?
FTX, the crypto exchange, recently went under. And now these people who thought they were putting their money into a safe investment learn the cold hard truth that they were simply gambling. My goal in sharing this with you is to arm you with the tools necessary to distinguish an investment from a speculation, because only in understanding the difference will you be able to target the right opportunities for you, given your circumstances and context. Which brings us to the really big question. When exactly is the right time to speculate? Well, as it turns out, there's really only 2 times you should jump into speculative opportunities. First is when you're young, because you have the benefit of time on your side, and so what if you go broke at 23? Everybody's broke at 23. Second is when you have more money than you could possibly need. And so it's interesting then to realize that while our young YouTube millionaires are technically wrong in thinking they're investing and giving you that advice, they're not actually wrong in the fact that they're doing more or less what they should be doing given their age and their financial means. However, chances are high, if you're watching this video, you may be young, but you probably don't have ridiculous amounts of disposable income just laying around. And if that's you, then forget speculating and instead spend your money on acquiring skills, networking, and increasing your earning potential. Because truly, this is the one thing you should definitely take away from the young YouTube millionaires. Develop a money-making skill. If you want to make money, become a millionaire, or just win the wealth game, you have to increase your earning potential. And most people go about this in the worst way possible. They go to college, get their degrees, and they go get a job and work really, really hard, thinking if I just put my nose to the grindstone, I'll get promoted through the ranks, I'll get that raise, and one day I'm going to be rich and retired. But it's almost impossible to build meaningful wealth playing the game this way, because you're trading your time for money and you only have so many hours in the day. The key then is you got to figure out how to disconnect the money you make from the time you put in. And the core concept you have to understand to accomplish this is that of leverage. See, leverage increases your output per unit of input. So the more leverage you have, the more money you can make. And this is what our young YouTube millionaires have done so damn well, and they deserve massive props and kudos. First, they developed a skill that the marketplace valued at a premium, and then they went out and put that skill to work. Second, they built systems and teams around those skills so that they could scale. And then third, they leveraged the skills and experiences they'd acquired to start creating content on YouTube.
Bro, I'm saying, bro, YouTube is the best method or in terms of scaling that you could ever dream of, imagine of, right? The expenses are usually fixed, right? Usually just your time a little bit. Maybe you have an editor, maybe you have a thumbnail maker, but the potential income, there's no cap on the income. That's why most times or not, your best bet is to like make content around your life, like things that you know, things that you're passionate about, or things that you like doing. Right? If you have a story time, talk about a story time of the time you got scammed, talk about the time you got finessed, talk about your worst day ever, talk about what it's like working at your previous jobs, day in the life of a Costco worker, or what it was like working at Costco, what it was like working at IKEA, shit like that. Based on like career advice or career studies I've seen, is like you're more likely to get a increase in income by switching companies every 2 or 3 years than necessarily being at the same company for 5+ years, hoping that they give you a raise. But as always, it doesn't feed you, don't water it, and too much of any good thing is good for nothing. How you look doing today? Say with me. I'm doing more, saying less, keeping that same energy. No cap. Flip the script. I'm out.
I want you closer. Every day me I be calling, babe. Wanna tell you that I'm sorry, babe. Make you come and make you go today. I still love you and you know it, babe. Every day me I be calling, babe. Wanna tell you that I'm sorry, babe. Make you come and make you go today. I still love you, babe. One lie, baby, our love is a sweet game.